Okay, we're starting with chapter 5 now, and it's the end of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and now it is Belshazzar, which is his grandson. So, this is a pretty big chapter, so let's get to it. Belshazzar, so this is the end of the Babylonian kingdom. He was promised 3 generations, so by God, so this is the last, and yeah, I had a note here, so all right. Chapter 5, verse 1. Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. They were basically having a drinking party. Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar, our great-grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. That's not a good idea. Read elsewhere where certain Levitical priest sons did that, and they died. They didn't fare well. Okay. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver and of brass, of iron, of wood, and stone. There's another 6 for you. In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand, and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, and the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Do you imagine you're sitting there having fun, and all of a sudden, boom, this hand comes down and starts writing on a wall, and you're just like, whoa. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against the other. He had a leaky bladder at that point. Thank goodness it was only the bladder. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, Whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet, it's purple, and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the 3rd ruler in the kingdom. They'll be elevated with him in his 3rd man. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. Now the queen, this is the queen mother, Belshazzar's queen mother, okay? By reason of the words of the king and his lords came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father Nebuchadnezzar, thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, who the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king, I say thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers. So she was there, she remembered Daniel. For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams, and she knows that Daniel's a prophet, so, and showing of hard sentences and dissolving of doubts, were found in the same Daniel, who the king named Belshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Now Daniel's about 87 years old here, and if you, as you notice, the next chapter, he's 87 here. The next chapter and on will be different years. So it's kind of important to understand that. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou that Daniel which art of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. So, yeah, the religious sect was brought in again, and it's so weird because that's usually how it goes, you know. And they were able to see all the miracles and things God was showing Babylon, and but they always kind of fell back on their gods. Okay, now if thou canst read the writing and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. So one out of the three to rule. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy reward to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation. He didn't want the gifts or anything because he already knew what was on the writing on the wall. O thou king, the most high God, God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and a majesty and glory and honor. And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would he slew, and whom he would he kept alive, and whom he would he set up into rulership, and whom he would he put down. But when his heart was lifted up, prideful, saying that he did it all, I built my kingdom up. In Deuteronomy 32, the Song of Moses, goes through that same thing too. Anyway, he said, I did all this. And God doesn't like that. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beast, and his dwelling was with the wild asses. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. Wasn't it Saddam Hussein who went through, who kind of did the same thing? He went in and he was rebuilding Babylon, Iraq. He went a little crazy. I'm trying to think who that was. Anyway. And thou his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knewest all this. He didn't really care. He was just drinking and partying all the time, and yeah, he didn't really care about the responsibilities. But has lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, thy wives, and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. And thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, nor hear, nor know, and the God is whose hand thy breath is. So this is Yahweh, and the God in whose hand thy breath is. He's the creator. He created him, his spirit. And whose are all in thy ways has thou not glorified. So even though he knew this stuff, he didn't care. You know, he just wanted to party and do all that stuff. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Many tekel up harson. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many. God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. There was a clock set. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. Things aren't balancing out, basically. Hey, Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. So divided and broken, it's finished. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet, and put a chain of gold about his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him, that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. They gave it to him anyway, even though he said he didn't want it, and he knew it wouldn't last long. In that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain. And if you go back into history, it was a terrible death. And so the leadership that was given and promised is now gone. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. About 62 years old. And Darius is a title. It's not a name of a person. Okay. So there we go. Once we get into like chapter 8, it really talks about the end times, but it's good to, read and understand that God can put up whoever he wants. He can make anybody a prophet, whoever he chooses. And so we're not to judge people because it's up to God. It's not us, So the next one will be chapter 6.